All right, this gets into a video that I recently watched where they were talking about, the de Broglie wavelength or something along those lines. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it's whatever, right? And so basically, we went from saying, photons are waves, and here's the equation for the wavelength. But wait a minute, it's not just photons or electromagnetic radiation that can be calculated like this. We can't just use this equation for photons, but we could also use this equation for electrons, and we can also use this equation for, atoms and molecules and people, and everything actually works with this equation. And what is so bizarre to me, right, is when we live in a world where it's not waves, right? And then we went, oh, so everything's waves then. And instead of going, the equation actually works for everything, maybe photons aren't waves after all, and maybe, this equation isn't quite right. No, we went the other way and said, oh, well, if photons are waves. They have to be waves. So everything else in this universe is waves. And that's the only way it can be. And that is just so absurd to me. It's so absurd to me. It doesn't make any sense. It's just getting ridiculous at this point. It's like, okay, wait. So the exact same equation can be used that is used to find the energy and wavelength of a photon, right? The exact same equation can be used for everything else with no issues. So maybe let's not rewrite everything and just be like, oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense, actually. So photons have mass. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. I don't understand why we went the other way. Right? And basically because what that says is, this is why it's so absurd to me, right? Because what that is saying, right, at the end of the day, we're saying, well, photons don't have mass, right? So, they get their energy, and their energy is based off this wavelength, right? And frequency, and, using this equation, we can find that, right? We can calculate that, because we can't do it a different way. We can't use mass in the equation because, photons don't have mass, right? And so, but what we can do is then take things that we have found to have mass, right? We have found that these things do have mass, right? And this equation works without having to change things, from my understanding. Maybe I'm missing something, right? But without having to change things, you can convert a thing that has mass, confirmed to have mass, into this equation, and it works, and you get, from my understanding, the proper predictions still, right? And so instead of going, okay, well, I guess that means that maybe photons do have mass, what we said was, okay, so then nothing has mass. Because that's what that equation is, but that's what that means then, right? If everything's actually just waves, and this equation works for everything that has mass, then nothing actually has mass then, and then mass isn't real, and that, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand the logic here, because basically what we're saying is everything we found to have mass doesn't. That's the only logical conclusion to be made from this. Because otherwise, if that's not what that's saying, then why can't we use this equation to then prove that photons have mass, right? Because the whole point of this equation is photons don't have mass, so we have to use this, right? But if we can use it for everything else, right, that does have mass, then that means that photons have mass. But then you say, oh, no, but photons don't have mass. Okay, well then nothing else has mass then. It can't be both. It can't be both. You cannot be both. You can't play this, oh, well, sometimes it's a particle, other times it's a wave. That's so stupid. I'm sorry, you're wrong. It's wrong. It's not real. That's not how this works. You can't just pick and choose. The universe is not picking and choosing. That's not how this works. I don't understand it. It's so frustrating because it just doesn't, there's no logic. I don't understand. Where is this coming from? I cannot follow the logic. It's not there. And that's my problem again, because we get back to, with quantum mechanics, it's so hand wavy with things. So they just go, well, it doesn't have to make sense. There doesn't need to be logic. And I was a strong proponent of this, right? I was like, well, it doesn't really need to make sense. But then I started thinking about things and I realized that everything does, right? You know, there are certain things we don't understand why they happen because we don't have the information, right? But if you were to, like, you know, you're walking down the street and then someone comes by and punches you in the face, that would seem like completely random. You don't know why that happened to you, right? But if you watched that person's life leading up to that, you would know why they punched you. And it could be as dumb as they just felt like it, but it is a reason. And then you could be like, okay, well, why did they feel like it? And then you can look into their, you know, past trauma and all this stuff. Like, there's reasons for this stuff. And it does not just, I don't know. It's just weird. You know, I hate it so much. I don't like it. I don't like it. And like, it just, I'm so baffled. I don't know what to say. What's going on? Like, if someone can give me a logical argument, right, as to why photons and this equation makes sense to just not have mass and that everything is a wave and everything has a wavelength and stuff. If you can give me a logical explanation that I can't refute with logic, then I'll believe you. But I've yet to see it, because a lot of people just say, well, photons don't have mass, right? And then that's their argument. Well, photons don't have mass. And I'm like, well, no, they do. But they do, right? And then they say, well, but they don't. And then it's like, well, but they do, right? and it's like, you know, as soon as I say, no, but they do, like, what other evidence do you have, right? And you say, well, they can't because they're going at the speed of causality. But they're not. And then it's like, okay, well, then what other evidence do you have? Like, nothing breaks by me saying that. All the math works still with me saying that, except everything you believe in falls apart. It's just the truth. I don't want to be like, there's no shot that I'm wrong here, but I really can't see it, right? And maybe that's just my own delusion. I've said this before. Maybe it's my own delusion, but I cannot see it being right. And I think people are starting to realize that it can't be right. And, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, within my lifetime, that becomes the reality, because it's just not, like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Peace out.